It's a great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the Business for Peace Foundation. Welcome to excellencies and friends of the Foundation, and of course a special welcome to this year's Business for Peace honorees. Business for Peace is a global foundation working to raise the awareness of responsible business models which create value not only for society but also for the company. And this is what the Foundation has coined Businessworthy action. To highlight these role models, the Foundation honors business leaders who have used their energy and talent to contribute to peace and prosperity, and present them with the Business for Peace award each year here in Oslo. The focus is on how business leaders can help solve global challenges and reach the UN Sustainable Development Goal. Few people have contributed more to goal number 3, good health and well-being, than Jamie Oliver. Now, if there is one person who doesn't need an introduction, it is Jamie. We grew up with you on TV, and we all feel that we know you. In the UK, there is only one person who has sold more books than Jamie, and that is Harry Potter. And I have to admit that I have never been as starstruck as when I met Jamie the first time. But today, I wanted to say some words about what Jamie has done for health, because it is much less well known that also here you have achieved some seriously amazing things. As you know, Jamie started off as the naked chef, and through his programs made cooking cool for men. It changed from having been a female thing to become a 50-50 man-woman thing. He opened the social enterprise 15 and changed the way that people think about apprenticeship in cooking. He then, through school dinners, changed the way children eat in the UK. And by the way, he also at the same time got the government to put in £500 million to improve the meals. Then in 2015, he took on sugar and got the government to introduce the sugar tax. And amazingly enough, last week, he also got Transport of London to outlaw advertising of junk food on the London Transportation Network. So nobody in Europe has done more to improve children's food and nutrition than Jamie. But Jamie also has an incredible global reach, and I suspect few of you realize just what kind of reach this is and the magnitude of it. His Food Revolution Day 2 years ago had more than 10,000 events across 121 countries. He had 116 million followers on Facebook, and 1.4 billion tweets were generated that day. 1.4 billion. And he isn't even the American president. I believe that Jamie is the only credible voice in children's food education and nutrition worldwide, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say about the amazing new goal of halving childhood obesity by 2030. Jamie will be interviewed by Alessandro Demaio, who is the new CEO of EAT, and I can't think of anybody who is better placed to do this. Sandro is trained as a medical doctor and has a master's in public health and a PhD in non-communicable diseases. He had a postdoctoral fellowship at Harvard and then worked as medical officer at the WHO global headquarters before taking over as the CEO of EAT last month. Please help me welcome Sandro and Jamie.
Wow. That's an amazing introduction.
Pretty incredible.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So I'll just start by making a quick hello and welcome on behalf of Jamie and myself, and then a welcome to you, of course, the guest of honor, Jamie. So welcome everyone to the Business for Peace lecture here at the University of Oslo. in Norway today, of course hosted by the Business for Peace Foundation. My name is Sandro, I'm the CEO of EAT, and I'd like to also shout out not only to those of us in the audience, but of course the thousands of people watching live around the world via the Facebook live stream. Sharing is caring, so make sure that you use the hashtag Businessworthy and of course BFP Summit so that we can have one coherent conversation trending globally. So we've now got an hour of conversation with Jamie. Pretty much, I mean, what better offer could anyone make than sitting down with you for an hour?
We're going to talk for like half an hour.
Yeah, half an hour.
Then you lot are going to
And then we're going to have some questions from the audience, and one, in fact,
Unfiltered.
that we've crowdsourced from around the world. So I'm going to start with some rapid-fire questions, single-answer questions, just to shake you up, JB.
Oh, that's painful.
All right. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, you bastard, already you failed. How can you ask
A plastic
me?
lemon?
Don't talk to me about that. Don't talk to me about that.
One food.
That is like saying, which one of your children do you love the most?
All right, we'll come back to that question.
It's unethical.
Dinner with anyone, past or present, dead or alive?
Elvis Presley.
Good answer. Good answer. Do you? I don't know if you have time to watch TV, but is there anything you're binge watching at the moment? Maybe children's TV with your kids, or?
I'm like really boring. I like things like the Discovery Channel.
Okay.
I like, finding out how big bridges were built and big machines. But my wife, we have a conflict because my wife just loves the Kardashians. So
what are the Kardashians building these days?
Mate, I don't know.
Big bridges?
But I know that they affect the share price of Snapchat. So
Okay, last question. Is it true that you own a hovercraft?
Yes. How did you know that?
Good. All right. Well, we have our sources up here in Scandinavia. We'll tell you that later. But
I do. It's such a random thing.
And a tank.
I do. How did you know about that?
Well, I was actually hoping that it would be parked outside.
It's not a tank. It's not a military tank.
Okay.
It's a vehicle that happens to have 8 wheels.
Okay.
Can go anywhere.
And it was a birthday present.
And it also goes through water.
Sounds pretty fun.
It basically means I can do really good picnics.
Yeah.
So
wherever you want.
Yeah.
So the first question is actually about you and Norway. You often refer to the Scandinavian region and also Norway in terms of its food, the new Nordic diets and the Norwegian food, but also policy making. What is it about this region that's inspired some of your work?
Oh, well, generally speaking, people along the Nordics are quite sensible and logical. And if you look at a handful of the countries, there's really good fundamental values. There's good views on healthcare and how you look after the old population. Righteousness, right or wrong. There's a lot of things around food policy and food industry. So often when we're looking at the trouble we have, I've spent quite a few years living in towns that are the most unhealthy, whether that's Australia or America or the UK. And of course, when you look around the world for good practice, I think so. I think so. And I think that's a wonderful thing for you people.
It works. Obesity rates like half or a third of the UK.
Yes, but I also think it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Interesting.
There's not just because the thing is, good is a moving target, and
so responsibility for
the
region.
because this country, as other Nordic countries, are wonderful examples in many aspects of what to do, and of course, if you speak to people in these countries, they'll still complain about certain things because perfect doesn't really exist. But it is a moving target, and the food industry is a moving target. And as we try and as we plan to feed, another 5 or 6 billion people over the next 50 years, we have to make some really clear, concise, clever, morally balanced decisions about how we produce food, how we nourish communities. And of course, what happens in many countries is the divide between the richest and the poorest. And of course, when you look at that from a nutritional point of view, it's very dangerous, very, very upsetting. And I think, in a way, a country is defined on how bad is bad.
Ratio, yeah.
Because bad can mean different things to different people in different countries. But So that's, I mean, really, that's my motivation in the UK is very much focused on the most disadvantaged communities and those kids who are 2 to 3 times more likely to be overweight or obese. And it just tracks into adult life, early mortality, a less productive life. You can see it in education. You can see it in their annual paycheck, and you can see it in the amount of chicken shops and fast food takeaways. It all corresponds. It's not luck.
Yeah. And you've been doing a lot of work recently in advertising to children. I remember when I was working with the UN, very clearly a conversation, we talked about this briefly today, with a minister from this region, and we asked the question, how on earth, we've been trying for decades to get a ban on advertising of junk food to children, and you're working so hard in the UK to try and get one at the moment. And this region, again, has had one for a long time. And so we asked the question, how on earth did you get that ban? And their answer was, well, to be honest, we're not really sure how the rest of the world gets away with not having one.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
what I'm saying. These people are quite sensible.
They've got it together, right?
Yeah,
that's why we've come here.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the thing.
But do you find that helpful in your work? I mean, sometimes I kind of encounter almost, but they've got it all perfect up there, so we can't we can't compare ourselves. But to have that benchmark is helpful.
Really helpful. I mean, it's integral. And I think when you look at public health or child health on a global level, and I know you know this very well, you need examples of what good or better looks like. And absolutely, I mean, what's quite interesting in the UK at the moment is because the advertisers are going to be regulated, and our argument is it okay to target children on their phones, on their games, on their free apps, on the way to school, in their school uniform at a bus stop, and of course with digital screens. They're getting. You
can target them.
They're getting Domino's and Oreos this month. Like clockwork, and that's not luck.
No,
it's not luck. So we're saying, is that okay to target children when our kids are not doing great at the moment?
Yeah.
1 in 3 kids are going to secondary school overweight or obese. Of course, the public are saying no, it's not okay, and the advertising industry are even saying advertising doesn't work.
Spending a lot of money on something.
So why do you do it then? Because we're a charity. So it's
supporting PR agencies,
I
or
think,
struggling PR agencies.
I think for too long, because there's so much in our life, there's so much in our politics, because of the way media is consumed. Really, if you're concentrating on child health, it's about detail, and the media likes one thing. What's the one thing? Politics likes the one thing. And of course, the reality is to protect communities and protect children and to enrich communities and culture.
Yeah.
It's hundreds of little things.
But to do that takes a certain amount of trust and belief in those that you're collaborating with, because it is a collective action, it's a systems-based challenge.
Yep.
Do you get the sense, sometimes I get the sense that there is a different kind of trust up in this part of the world between government and constituents and business than the rest of the world? Do you get that sense when you come to visit?
Yep.
In what way?
I keep saying it. They're quite normal, sensible, logical people in this part of the world. I can't keep saying it. I mean, it is. I mean, in many ways, this is the case. And
all right, that's the end of the first section, sponsored by the Tourism Board of Norway.
But it's as simple as that. For 15 years of campaigning, I have never done or achieved anything clever, ever.
There'd be a few million who disagree.
If you look at my manifesto of change that we're working with on the government at the moment, so what I did in the last, it's taken a year and a half, but we got all of the other opposition governments, so all of the non-conservative governments, we got them to agree to a childhood obesity strategy. It took a year and a half. So many signatures. So we've taken politics out of the way of looking after kids. Nothing in that strategy could not be written by a 12-year-old kid.
But isn't that the genius of the strategy?
Yes, but when it's adults, in my opinion...
I mean, I was backstage a moment ago, and I had possibly one of those moments where you sort of go out of your body and look down on the room that you're in and wonder if this is real. Because I was sitting in a room while Jamie Oliver was writing an Instagram message for the world, and the way that you frame your message, the way that you talk, is so engaging, it's so simple, but it's powerful and it's intelligent. It doesn't treat people like they're idiots, but it includes everyone. And I think it's the same as the work that you do with the policy work that you do, because you don't even call it policy work. The rest of us use these words that alienate people straight away.
I call it getting shit done.
Getting shit done, yeah. So, Jamie, let's talk about trust, because as we heard already, you have it in spades, but we live in a time where it's really an eroding source in many settings. You know, between the private sector and the public, between parents and government, between the media and the public, between the media and government, between, pretty much any way you turn. But you're a media, spokesperson, I don't want to say celebrity, a business owner, a father, and an advocate. You're kind of everything, and yet you're one of the most trusted people. You know, my grandmother loves you, and my 3-year-old niece loves you, and you're one of the most trusted people probably on the planet.
But they don't trust me enough to beat Harry Potter, do they? I need to earn a little bit more than that magician.
To be fair, my 95-year-old grandma has read many more of your books than J.K. Rowling's, don't worry. But what's the secret what's the secret ingredient that has allowed you to build such trust, not just in the public, but also in policymakers, in the business community, that are so fragmented otherwise?
Don't lie.
Good start.
That's it. Just don't lie. And if you look at my media over 15 years, you'll see patterns of people attacking me and not believing me, but you just keep going. And when they beat the hell out of you, you just keep going. And have you ever watched Finding Nemo?
I have.
So Dory just says, keep on swimming.
Yeah.
Keep swimming. But I think not lying is it. It's everything. You can't buy trust. You have to earn trust.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like me. Lots of people find me deeply annoying. Lots of people don't like me. And I think even in England, Britain's a very strange company. It's a strange
company. Very strange company.
But it's a strange country because they love tradition and they love people that can. I mean, I've survived. It's 20 years next year since The Naked Chef. So in dog years, that's like 100 years, right? And the machine of media just fucking grabs you and just just throws you away. I mean, it eats you up and it will throw you out. So to do 20 years is tough.
Yeah.
But I think you just have to be relentless and not lie. And it sounds really romantic, but a lot of the work I do, sometimes I do work for myself as a personal fascination or journey, and probably equal amounts, or if not slightly more, I do work for the public. So, every day, honestly, every day when I wake up and when I go to bed, the first and last thing I think about is the subject of the 2030 project and how on earth are we going to make this industry, the biggest industry on the planet, more honest. And have a better effect on the planet, and most importantly, shorten the gap between the richest and poorest, and protect the most vulnerable kids. And it's funny because it's very like the sugar industry in the food is very addictive and it works, and now we're trying to reformulate it. The sugar in media is just bullshit one-liners. One-liners. That's why. So media doesn't like detail. And it often doesn't like truth. So we have a problem.
But is it a different approach? Because I think it has to be more than just not lying. I mean, what is it that allows you, do you think, to have the trust? You land in Australia, and I've seen it. Business leaders, the head of the country, civil society, scientists. Everyone trusts you, and that's a huge responsibility.
It's a massive
responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility.
But that's why you're able to make, in part, years of progress in a half-an-hour meeting or a 1-hour meeting, and that's because of the decades of work that you've put into building that trust.
I think my superpower is trust.
Yeah.
But my weapons are storytelling and filmmaking, documentary making, writing, and now social media.
So
And
storytelling, what do you mean by that?
well, because, look, you know, you worked in Harvard. About 4 or 5 years ago, I got an amazing award called the Harvard Cup, which is for contribution
Just being generally brilliant.
Yeah, contribution to protecting American public health, right? It's a big award. And I had to do a speech about this size in front of all these incredible professors. And as brilliant as Harvard is, and as amazing as their work in public health is, and they're truly world-class, they're not brilliant storytellers, and they don't have a documentary department. And I think just because you're great, scientific, you know, I just did a meeting with the Sovereign Wealth Fund to sort of question, you've got guidelines for investing in, you know, not investing in tobacco or child labor or the kind of responsible management of water, but you have none for food. Is that okay on behalf of the Norwegian people?
What did they say?
Well, they're looking into it. Right?
They'll have it solved, you know, by Tuesday, thanks to Jamie.
But you have to remember, like, and I'm not having a go at them.
No.
It's a room full of economists.
Yeah.
Really clever, bright people. Harvard, room full of scientists. Really bright, clever people. You know, it's a different language.
Yeah. But I'm guessing...
And they're not always right.
But I'm guessing in the room today, with the Norwegian Pension Fund, in a room full of economists, you didn't bring out your spreadsheets and your kind of green visor. I'm assuming you...
No, only a few, which was mortality, death,
Yeah.
childhood obesity, and then the concept of what does good practice look
Yeah.
like? What does responsible investment look like? I'm trying to work on a kind of story.
And what is the difference it could make?
Yeah, because also we want to make change from both sides.
Yeah.
The child health and the future productivity. I mean, good child health has to be the pillar to any country. Any country. When my Prime Minister talks about strong and stable, that is child health.
Yeah.
You can't, this kind of, you know, a lot of modern day democracy is revolved around, the average term of a minister is 3 years. If you look at Europe, the average term of a CEO or CFO is 3 years. So the work that we've done, and we're the young ones, aren't we? I'm 15 years in, but like we've got colleagues and mentors and friends who are wonderful, and they've been doing it for 40, 50, 60 years. They've seen it all. And so in a media world where everything's on one line, when when a minister gets good, they often move.
Yeah.
So I think the concept of constant, honesty, relentless, keep going, as Nemo said, keep on swimming, and swim in the right direction. I think then possibly, I mean, I do think it's interesting. It might be, I have 3 daughters and a wife. I have 5 kids. It's a big family. And I was having a debate about Me Too and women and the workplace and all of these things that are in our media at the moment. And I realized at my dinner table that the biggest feminist at the table was me. Right? Because I employ largely women, and the campaigns and the business that we drive is quite a maternal business. And our outlook on employment, how we feed and pay our girls and our boys, but also how our campaigns affect parents and family. Like, I personally think that women have been done a disservice socially in many countries around the world in the last 40 years. So as women have gone to work, governments haven't been clever enough to make mum and dad feel more comfortable, more guilt-free. You know, so in England, you know, when I did the school dinners campaign 15 years ago, there were standards for dog food, robust standards for dog food, a piece of paper that thick. And if you broke the law, you could go to jail. But there was nothing for 6 million kids. Nothing. It's so British. We love our dogs, but don't worry about the kids. They'll get through.
Jamie, I want to bring it back for a second to the summit that's happening this week. So we're going to have business leaders, and we're going to have other members of society all sitting down. You have this incredible responsibility, but also honor of having probably more trust in society, from society, than anyone else on the planet, potentially. But how do we, for those people who don't have that trust, there's this breakdown in trust between business and policymakers and scientists and the public and media, and pretty much every direction. What's the first step, apart from not lying, that these people over the next few days can take to start to rebuild that trust?
Not lie. Honestly, if your kind of North Star is tell the truth, whether it's on labeling, packaging, you know, you've got products that are screaming about high in vitamin D and fiber, but they're full of sugar. You know, if it's about where things come from, I still think that that's a really good basis. I mean, I think.
But how do you balance that? Because at the end of the day, I mean, I understand, you know, don't lie, but then when you have shareholders that you're responsible who might throw you out, or that's the public that's responsible that might throw you out, or, you know, what is a lie, what is a white lie? I mean, it starts to get...
Okay, so life is so busy, and we're all getting on with stuff. And so the concept of caring, or what is good practice, this is, if you want to care, because caring is a really heavy burden. The minute you care about stuff, you never leave it. And the minute you get good, the target's moving. To not care is the easiest thing in the world. That's why today, weirdly, with the Sovereign Wealth Fund, if anything happened, I don't know what's going to happen. It's not my business. But there's like 100 people in that room, and if 10 or 20 of them get together and start saying, just a minute, is this okay? Like, we've got views on nuclear power, nuclear weapons, guns, arms, tobacco, kids. But actually, if you bundle all that together, that's not hurting or killing more people than diet-related disease. Diet-related disease is the mother epidemic, and it's also the mother of all business. The food industry is the biggest on the planet and the biggest employer on the planet, and whether it's health...
And the biggest climate emitter on the planet.
Of course. So if you care about the planet or kids, to have
most of us do.
To have nothing, and you need people in your organisation to see it, to smell it, and to give you the truth. And you can have a little fight, but you need. I mean, in my business, we don't just employ people to sort of go, oh, well, this is nice, you're cute, you know. It's like we fight.
Yeah.
You know, there's that tension, and you need that kind of balance between social tension, responsibility, and commercials. You know, we understand. I mean, 15 years ago, I hated any business that was big, you know, but now I know that getting big businesses to be better is the future, and medium-sized businesses and small. So
that starts with a tough conversation based around honesty.
Based around lots of things. Ultimately, and this is just my opinion, whether it's groundbreaking breakthroughs that I've had in politics or with CEOs of business, it all comes down to ego, right? Just managing ego. And I'm not saying we don't all have an ego, we do, but like, you know, when I got Tony Blair to agree to investing for the first time in 40 years, you know, nearly £600 million over 6 years, you know, and protecting certain money to be spent just on nutrition and food education. I didn't get that because I was scientific. I didn't get that because I had data or the proof or the truth. I did have a documentary.
Narrative.
But it pretty much came down to sort of saying, I'm going to come and see you in a week, and you're going to give me a result to the information that I've given you, and you can be rubbish, you can be okay, or you can be robust, and that is your legacy. Dude, that's the only reason I got the cash. It's true. And whether it's a CEO, and I'm not judging, him on manipulating that ego. It's the right thing to do. Why should one treat other people's kids any different than your own? And I think that as I've learned about politics over the years, the default is to do nothing. And nearly every politician from any country has always said to me, make us and we will. Just think about that. Make us and we will. So guys, we have to make them, and they will.
Love that.
Just a minute. I thought that you were passionate about change, but of course politics, I still don't understand it. And in Britain, it's very complex. So
do you think it's the same for business? Make us, and we will?
Yeah, because I think it's a fine balance between taking a company that's very profitable and paying beautiful bonuses, but doing damage to people or the planet.
Yeah.
And as we become conscious and aware of good practice and bad practice, look, at the end of the day, right, making loads of money quick isn't necessarily that hard, right? I mean, Trump's going to show you exactly how to do that, right? That's very, very simple. So you've got a balance between commerciality and social responsibility. And where we probably need to get to, I'm no expert, is somewhere in the middle.
Well,
and I think, look, generally the Nordics show the rest of the world what best of practice looks like. I'm sure most of you would still have problems and issues about what happens, but for a foreigner, we look at you and go, that looks quite good. That would be nice to be standard here. So
that's a great segue for the next question I want to ask you, which is the theme of this week is the concept of Businessworthy. So the foundation, the Business for Peace Foundation, is around encouraging businesses to be business-worthy. That's sort of the alignment between profit, but also purpose, or people, or planet. So if you had to, in a few sentences, describe what does it mean to be business-worthy for you and the empire that you run as a business person?
Well, look, for me personally, about 4 months ago, I kind of had a bit of a moment in front of my teams. So I'm 43 in a week, and
happy birthday!
Thank you very much in advance.
You're looking very good.
On my 40th birthday, I wasn't very comfortable with it. It's my own personal problem. But you know, I'm not young, I'm not old. What am I? I don't know. But also, it was a tough.
Just Jamie Oliver.
No, but it's. I wasn't partying that year. I wasn't and I realised that I was. Everyone came to me for everything. They wanted my opinion every day. They wanted my view every day. And Jesus, look, I'm not that. I ain't that bright, and I'm not that. I mean, I can be 80% good most days, but I've got to be 95% most days. So that's why I need good people around me, and my teams and my guys. They keep me honest.
Yeah.
You know, but
and you have an amazing
sometimes
team.
Often I have like nice ideas, but my team are often better than me. But together we're an amazing team. But it's too human. It has too much risk, too much emotion. So we developed this concept called the 2030 Project, which is to halve childhood obesity by 2030. And what's interesting, for me, this is a radical thing, and if you run a business in this room, or if you run a team, I would urge you to just consider it. When you have a North Star that's very clear, it took the pressure off of me because you ask it. So everything that I do now, if it doesn't contribute to halving childhood obesity by 2030, then we don't do it.
Wow.
So when I talk to all, and having started a charity for 15 years, I always struggled getting the charity to spread its magic and energy across the whole organization. I mean, just being honest, being truthful. Like, you know, there's people doing this, that, and the other. Yeah, it's cute, but we don't really care. You know, can't have it. So by having the 2030 Project, if it doesn't contribute, it's gone. And if you look at, say, businesses like Unilever, you know, under Paul Polman, who's quite an inspirational CEO, he has either fixed problems or got rid of them. And there's a few left, but compared to 10 years ago, it's a light and shade.
It's that North Star.
Yeah, so I think it took a lot of pressure off of me because I just ask it.
Yeah.
So sometimes people ask me stuff, I went, sorry, can't do it. But also, it affects everything. So not just work, not just business, but also what broadcaster I work for, what content I make, what programs I make.
And Project 2030, is it just you, Jamie, or are you taking that to the rest of the world? Because I've seen some media on it this week as well.
So what we're trying to do is have an alliance.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a bitchy alliance. Anyone can be in it, small, medium, or large business. McDonald's could do it if they want to. Anyone can be part of 2030, but they have to have measurable progress. And of course, as a group, we all kind of share best of practice, but we also can look at each other and say, you're not being honest.
Yep.
So yesterday was an amazing moment for me because we had the Scottish Prime Minister come into my office, which is an honour, but also we went on the record to BBC News and she said, we commit to the 2030 project. We're going to halve childhood obesity by 2030 and I'm going to use all of my levers to take care of Scottish kids. And we know that's sensible. But that hasn't happened in Britain yet. That hasn't happened. Do you know what I mean? So yesterday was a big day. We want everyone to have a go. And
that's amazing.
To make it, we want it to be an idea of national pride. And if I can just kind of refer, like when Britain had the Olympics in 2012, you know, the Olympics is the most symbolic kind of broadcast. It's the biggest platform. It's the biggest stage on the planet. And the world comes together for this incredible thing that all of us are proud of. And as a British person, like, I'm proud of any Olympics, but it was in my country. So we had 26,000 journalists come to London. And the only thing culturally we could give them was the biggest McDonald's and Coke. And it's just wrong. It stinks.
Main sponsors, weren't
And interestingly, I was so upset by it, I hired the park next door, Victoria Park, I hired. And I was basically, you know, like the white lines on a football pitch. So I was going to draw Britain in big, giant white lines. And I had arranged suppliers and producers from all over England to come to the park and be just on the map where they come from. And I knew the 26,000 journalists would get bored of the same old. And then the next park next door, we were going to look after them and give them some culture.
Scotland.
But about 3 weeks before the Olympics, it sadly got pulled. My permissions all disappeared. And funny that, don't you think?
I just want to pick up on something because we're going to run out of time. I know we get carried away, but it's interesting what you said about, you know, the North Star, because what I see you understand, and we need to kind of get the message out to the wider business community as a business owner, is that if you set that North Star as a lone business, there is a risk. But if we all set the same North Star through policy, which is often seen as sort of at odds with business, then we create a new even playing field where all businesses can play together at the same level. And then front-running businesses like yours are given not risk, but in fact incentives.
But that's why legislation from government is
so important.
Imperative, because if it's voluntary, you have some that do and some that don't, and then you have this crunch. And we know it doesn't work because we've looked at it for 30 years and you've studied it.
But there's often that tension between business and policy. But what I see you understand so well is that actually good policy can protect front-running business.
Look, the sugary drinks tax was a perfect example. The year and a half that it went into consultation, by the time it was active 2-3 weeks ago, 2 out of 3 products had reformulated.
Yeah.
Done. And the money that was raised from the tax, I fought to have ring-fenced, and that only goes to primary schools.
Amazing.
For sports and education, breakfast clubs. So the public liked it, you know, no one likes tax, but the public was 70% in approval of a tax for good. So, you know, I think that legislation and government, if they're brave and if they're clear, they can do it. And I think also, also there's the idea that businesses have to be perfect. And I used to think that, but I don't agree with it. I think it's okay to have goals and be honest about getting there. Do you know what I mean? I think if everyone does their bit, we'll get there.
I believe we will too, Jamie. You've been incredibly generous to come up and visit us today, and you have a campaign currently running called Add Enough. This is where we're aiming to put a ban on child advertising of junk food to children.
Yes.
And it's been a fantastic campaign where people are posting on social media covering their eyes, saying that they've had enough of ads for children. So I'd like to offer something in response to your generosity of coming to visit us, that we'll get everyone in the audience to stand up, cover their eyes, you can take a photo of them, and we'll have a 700-person selfie from Norway for your Add Enough campaign.
So
Does that sound
Norway,
good?
do you want to be involved in the Add Enough?
Right, so stand up. So what do we need to do?
Of course, if you do believe in junk food advertising to kids, feel free
Yeah,
feel
just
free
get,
to sit
just get
down,
your packet
but
of chips out and...
I think you probably won't. I love it. Okay, so this is a nice one. Look at that.
All right.
I need to get
low.
higher. I need to. This is called activism, guys. this is Norway having their view. Right.
We got
Okay.
it? Everyone covering their eyes?
Ready? Okay, now we do a video because it's, we do more than pictures these days.
Quick, fix your hair, everyone. This is it. This is the big moment.
Okay, just going on to Instagram. Okay. So, hands up, girls and boys. Norway, have you had enough?
Yes!
Yay! See, that's it. It's great. Thank you. It's exciting times. I mean, what's exciting is I know you mentioned earlier about the Mayor of London banning junk food advertising to kids on the whole of the tube network. But to put that into perspective, it's the biggest advertising real estate on the planet.
Wow.
30
the
million,
biggest on the planet.
The biggest on the planet. It's like buses, tubes, trains. It's very robust. It's a massive move. And it's very symbolic. I think I personally, I mean, look, I love strong, clear governments, but I love good devolved powers to mayors so that you can have really good local people fixing local problems and just skin on skin and getting good work done. And I think for Mayor Sadiq Khan to have those, he's pulled these levers. And of course, the biggest lever was the advertising on TfL.
Yeah.
And he pulled it. So my hope and my wish is that all the mayors across Britain, but actually other countries as well, will start to realize that morally he's done the right thing. So fingers crossed.
Fantastic.
Let's see.
So, speaking of open conversations and a direct line to the public, we just broadcasted to the world. We have 3 young people in the crowd today and one that's actually been a question crowdsourced from across the entire planet this week who have won the opportunity to ask Jamie Oliver their own question.
Wow.
So the first person is Jonas. Jonas is a 23-year-old student at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. He's doing his bachelor's in international development and environmental studies and has a big interest in cooking and food security. Over to you.
Hi, Jonas.
Thank you for the warm introduction, and thank you for a fantastic and motivational talk. I think the question about trust is really important, and I think you addressed it well. Don't lie. A good rule to remember. But as a potential father, for
Wait
my
there,
future kids,
I can't actually hear you because what you don't realize is behind there, it sounds like we're in
There's an echo.
Go on, brother. I can hear you now.
Right. But as a potential father for my future kids, how do I get the access to correct information, what to feed them? Who can I trust to give me that information? Not how can we build trust, but who can I trust to give me that correct information?
Good man. Okay. Well, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, obviously, the beauty of content and media is you as a consumer have the choice to trust who you choose to trust, right? And there'll be fads and there'll be kind of flashy diets and this, that, and the other. But I mean, you kind of, I think it's subjective. I think the interesting thing about your question is, if I may stretch it slightly, the future is definitely, if you look at the way that content is consumed, there's more views on this than any terrestrial broadcast now. So as much as we love terrestrial broadcast, and it's still important, this is what kids and young parents are using. This is what they're searching. And just, it's kind of boring but interesting. Like, if you think about video, there's a whole standard to how video is given to you, right? And it's about pixels and frame rates, 25 frames a second, 26 frames a second. If it's music, there's a whole kind of standard about how that music gets to you. One of the most dangerous, potentially, things in the future, if not now, is billions of free rubbish recipes online. And what we're challenged with at the moment is the young generation want everything for free, and they don't necessarily want to pay for it and I'm referring to sort of things like content, tutorials, hacks, videos around food. Gaming they'll pay for, they've cracked it. So the trouble that we have at the moment is having billions of rubbish recipes is bad for nutrition, and it's bad for people trying to cook and not getting to the end with a great result. And not having a great result is bad for people's confidence to keep cooking. Otherwise, they just go to Domino's. So, I think it is tough. I mean, I think you just have to use your instinct. And I think, like for me personally, when I started studying nutrition 7 years ago, every book I've ever written since has the nutrition on every single page. Now, not everyone wants to read that, but it is there. And then when I write recipes, I still write cake recipes and burger recipes and things that are indulgent and delicious, but I don't just randomly write recipes. So when I write recipes, half of what I write is normally vegetarian, and there's a kind of the right percentage of indulgent, green, red, amber recipes. So that's what I do. So I take the luck away, but how you can guarantee that in the world and on this. I mean, look, we have likes and stars, 5 out of 5 because it worked, but it's still not necessarily about nutrition. It's about, I don't know, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a
but
tough
you've got to use your, dare I say it, I guess your instinct and your common sense, really.
Our next question comes from Lily. Lily is 16 and goes to Ski Videregående. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I've been practicing that seriously for 3 days and it's still terrible.
I'm coming down so I can hear you.
She's over here. She has recently worked on a school project where she followed the lifespan of a food product, Jamie, and researched alternative and more sustainable solutions. Over to you, Lily.
Yes. How can we inspire others around us to make a change without sounding like a moral know-it-all?
You mean like me?
Great question.
I think it's a really hard balance, and it's one that you have to address all the time. So obviously, from my point of view, most of my life in front of... Is that me? Most of my life in front of you is just having fun. I think just having fun and the deliciousness of food, the joy of food, family, friends, if you think about The Naked Chef, it was just about having a party, And so a lot of my output is still that, and obviously today is a bit more serious. But that mix of fun and seriousness, I think you do have to get that blend right. And certainly for me, I've got to make sure I don't go too far one way than the other. But, having the fun is joyful and feels somewhat indulgent. And then when I do the other serious stuff, it feels important and meaningful. But if I don't make it fun, then I don't get the benefit. But I think to widen it out, I think we need more young people. I mean, people talk about equality in broadcast. I guess you would say whether it's the BBC or Norwegian TV, do they make it easy enough for young Norwegians to have a cooking show that's fun and relevant? Do they have, do you know what I mean? Do they have editorially in magazines the ability to celebrate food from a teenager's perspective? And I can't answer that. But I think in these days, you don't need the broadcasters anymore. I mean, broadcasters are going like that, papers going like that, and this is, so I think you have the tools. I mean, that's when I started The Naked Chef, I never thought that you could have a whole film studio in your hand, I mean, we used to do book signings and talk to people. Now we do selfies.
But it's interesting because, I think you made the comment when you came to speak at the United Nations in 2016 and you were there and I think you were the only one not wearing a tie, but everyone really appreciated the fact that you were very honest, very real, and I think that speaks to the question in many ways as well, that you balance an ability to say the truth, to call governments out, to call for what is fairly progressive policy, but at the same time, show the world that you like having fun and you've got the hovercraft.
Yeah. I think like the interesting thing is, I guess the thing I'm passionate about is there's always been good things happening, but it's random and by luck. And I think if you look at public health now and child health and productivity of countries and happiness and health, and we have a very short life and we want to make it the best one possible, and we definitely want to take the pressure off the healthcare system. So the best way to do that is to have some structure that allows good stuff to happen a bit more regular. And I think that's generally what we're working for. But look, when I was a Naked Chef, that was 20 years ago. I was 24 years old. And in 20 years, no other teenagers or kids or young people have been represented on TV in Britain. So I don't think that's okay, to be honest. And they don't even, if it's comedians, they normally have a show where there's 4 or 5 comedians. And, the show can handle one not being so polished, right? But I think, more kids cooking, the better. I mean, that's why I love kids cooking at school. I think cooking is the best way at school to learn maths. I think it's the best way to learn about history. If you want to know about Norwegian culture, it's food. Food is wrapped around. So I think, I'm obviously biased, but I do believe it.
Jamie, our next question comes from Linus. Linus is 18 and goes to the culinary school at Etterstad Videregående. He has read Jamie's cookbook since he was 6.
Good lad.
And is a very dedicated chef's apprentice. Over to you, Linus.
You have been one of my biggest inspirations, and I wonder who's your inspiration?
Who's my inspiration? Thank you, sir. And you're a chef in training? Yeah, good man.
Do you want a TV show?
Where's
our
get together, we might
broadcaster?
go over here. Yeah.
Let's get it done by Tuesday.
Who's my inspiration? Originally, it was my mum and dad. My dad was a chef. And then when I left to move to London, Gennaro Contaldo was like a crazy pasta, mushroom picker, forager. And he's still my best friend today and my first boss in London. But here's the thing, dude. Like, this career and the food industry is such a... I know there's lots of crap in it, but it's the most beautiful industry. I'll tell you one thing as a fact, globally, is anyone that makes good food or good ingredients, they're always incredible people. Always. Always, always. So, like, the fact that there's not one mentor, but also, you move from one place to another, and if you treat that business like your business, you'll do really well, really young, and they'll help you go to the next place, and you'll find another mentor, and then at one stage in your life, you'll become the mentoree, and you'll have a little version of you next to you, and it's a beautiful cycle, and so if you're working in the kitchen and you don't like it, move. Go somewhere else. There's beautiful kitchens in this country and around the world, and of course, at your age, how old are you? 18, Jesus. So when I was 18, I moved to London, and I worked for Gennaro. And I worked 20 hours a day, and I worked 3 shifts a day, and I loved it. I couldn't do it now because it was too much, but I had the best time of my life. And it's a really interesting one, because in cooking particularly, my dad said it's a young man's game, right? All my friends were traveling around the world, they were shagging, they were having a great time, And I was in a basement kitchen with wild mushrooms and a very hairy Italian,
But a few years later, you were voted one of the most sexy men alive. So I think you came out on top.
But good luck. It's a wonderful industry. And if you put 10 years hard work in and you have a bad time, sorry, it's only your fault. You just follow good people and it'll all work out.
Great mentors.
Definitely.
Jamie... Jamie, the last question comes from Catherine Backholer, and this has been crowdsourced this week from social media around the world. Catherine's actually a young Australian researcher. I promise it was a fair and open contest. She's based just outside of Melbourne, And via Instagram this week, Catherine asked, how can we capitalise on the digital frontier to improve our food system and protect the health of our communities? So you've talked about the digital frontier, but with all the risks, what's your advice on...
Well, as usual, it's a big question, and I can't answer it all, but all I will say is the beautiful thing about technology, Instagram, stuff like that, is the most trusted, well, let's start, the most untrusted people on the planet are CEOs and politicians, right? This is commonly known, pretty well-researched information, just so you know.
We hope we didn't just ruin anyone's day.
No, but it's if you look at the whole of business, if you go to the Sovereign Wealth Trust, they'll know this, right? And the most trusted people, number one, is your friends, right? Your community, your friends on Facebook, your friends on Instagram. So I think the joy is that as we can share stories about food, farming, recipes, joy, culture, fun, wonderful times, people eventually start to learn that every day when they go shopping, they're voting. So that euro or pound or whatever currency you use, every time you buy a coffee, every time you buy, don't start whinging about Starbucks not paying tax if you go there every day. If you don't like it, don't go there. There's lots of other coffee shops. Every day you go shopping, you can make a vote. And if you don't like intensive farming, then do what I do and eat vegetarian 4 days a week. And then towards the end of the week, you can have an incredible piece of something. So I think the idea of every day you're shopping, you're voting, is a cool thing. And that way, I think you can really help. I mean, if you look at, even in Britain, farmers' markets have exploded in the last 10 years. And it's a really good thing. So
vote with your note.
Yeah, and that includes in supermarkets as well, right?
Yeah.
Supermarkets, they will sell anything. They're not trying to, they're trying to do lots of things, but they will sell anything. But you have to buy it.
Yeah, if you can give them something better to buy.
So I think, yeah.
Again, it comes back to make us and we will.
Yeah, and tell the truth. And the hard thing at the moment is that concept of labeling and busy people, that you can go down the cereal aisle in a supermarket and it looks like everything's healthy, but it's not. About 5% is healthy. There's lots of lying going on the front of pack. So, I think that's what we're looking for.
We're just about out of time. Are we able to take one question from the audience? Great. Otherwise, we might get stampeded, or I might get...
Go for it. Do they have a roaming mic?
So, one question, quick question from the audience. I think the first arm to go up was this one here.
I'm going to go down because I can't hear a word.
Jamie's coming to give you a hug.
A hug? Well, it's a guy. Do we hug guys in Norway? Jesus,
hey!
Man. There's no pressure.
Well done.
Jamie, thanks for a very inspirational speech. It's really cool. I think my friends like you a lot because they give me 2 books of yours, but I never read them. But now I have a chance, yeah. But my question is about charities. You mentioned that there's a lot of charity in the UK and so on, and it's a lot of charity around the world, and a lot of people want to feed Africa, for example, and make changes there. And we see that very few charity organizations are really meaningful and really trying to change the world, because when it turns big, it turns to be a bit more business-like, and it's run not efficiently and not really giving a lot back to society. What charity organization you see as a good organization and which is maybe related to food or something?
Great question. Jesus, how am I going to answer this one? I think, look...
if the answer's not the organisation I work for, we'll no longer be friends. You know that, don't you?
I was going to...
You've got one
bridge. I was going to bridge to that naturally, but now they know our strategy. I think it's really interesting time. Look, I've run a charity for 15 years. Of course, the laws are different in different countries. But I've kind of come to, in my opinion and in my experience, what we did was take kids from quite challenging backgrounds, often prison, and train them to the highest level in a kitchen, and we'd buy food, prepare it, sell it, make a margin, and then use that profit to pay for those kids. The charities commission didn't really like or get that. You know, they would much prefer me, you know, shake a bucket and say, can you put some money in there? And so I have grown to prefer social business rather than straight charities, but that's quite a big generalistic thing to say. So I think we're living in a time now where, for the right reasons, people are asking questions about where does the money go and who gets what. And I think we have to be careful. Like, some charities say every penny of this goes to the cause. Just a minute. Like, you want to make sure that the central team that look after it, that care for it, that research it, you know, the receptionist, that you need a good core team to run a good charity. Otherwise, you really don't know necessarily where the money's going. So that became a bit of a one-liner in the press, you know, like 100% of the money goes there. No, just you need to have. At the same time, people are asking questions about, are you really doing what you say you're doing? And we've had problems with Oxfam. I think, look, the charity industry is not a holy, it's just like any industry, and you have good practice and bad practice, and sometimes there's problems in the press, and guess what? Just like in any other industry, people behave themselves, and of course there's been problems and issues, but I think...
But it comes back to integrity and honesty again, doesn't it? Saying the truth, because there are increasingly charities that are very upfront about what percentage of the funds go to overheads, what they're working on, where in the supply chain, for example, in food they're working.
But also, it does, you know, not to be too controversial, but there's really amazing charities out there that have most of their money invested in nuclear power and arms and tobacco. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Not us.
But no, but that's common. It's really common. But also, it's a really interesting, even like with my staff, I pay for life insurance, private healthcare, and we contribute generously to pensions. But when the pension man comes into the business and sits down with everyone and goes, right, you can get 7% here, 5% there, or your return on ethical investments is 4%. If everyone's over here. So, you know, it's a toughie. But I do think the best charity nearest to me is, what's your organisation called?
Thanks, Jamie.
No, really. Tell them about your charity.
Yeah, so EAT is a global foundation. It's driving food system transformation based on science, but we work with a wide range of stakeholders, policy, business, science, civil society, to drive that change. And it's really around using the food system to address two great global challenges, that is climate change and human health. And we have this vision by the middle of this century to have a food system that delivers not only nutritious diets that protect our planet, but are also tasty and delicious. And we're working very hard on that. We'll hold our own summit with 650 world leaders, experts, colleagues, allies, friends in Stockholm in about a month.
What's fascinating about this, and I'm not doing a plug for it, is the resource of bringing the best of science and industry and policy and a vision
and trust
and a strategy. It's quite rare. So you know, this is a very powerful thing. Good luck.
Thank you. And we've been very lucky to have you speak a few years ago, of course. So just summing up, because we have now come to the end. I promised that the time would flash by. Sort of like that, the start of the holiday when you're sitting on the plane and you think, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to wish I'm back in this exact position. We probably all wish we were back an hour ago. If you do, you can watch it on YouTube over and over on loop, as my father does with your TED Talk, for the next week and a half. Jamie, I don't know how to thank you. You're a father, you're a chef, you're a leader, you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, you're a philanthropist, and to many of us, you're a hero. And I don't use that word lightly. You're a beacon of trust in a darkened landscape of blame, shame, and misinformation. I quote, and you said, I hope I have worked hard to build trust with my audience so they trust me to try new things. They seem on board and along for the ride. I have and hope to use this trust to continue to help educate, inspire, and make change in the future, especially for this next generation. We hope you do too, Jamie, and we will be with you every step of the way.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very grateful for that.
Now,
And,
I would encourage everyone to follow up on the work that Jamie outlined also today, the work of your foundation, the new pledge, and of course the Add Enough campaign.
Yes, I mean, I think my instinct is I'm going to continue to have fun and cook and try and be joyful and not too serious, which today's pretty serious, but I'm going to try and get that balance right. But I would say I think really good things are going to happen in the next 5 years. I think that I don't think we should look at the last 10 years and think that we're just going to have a version of the same. I really, really think that good things, sensible things are going to happen. And for that, you guys, locally, the rest of the world does look to you for what good looks like. Politically, in the food system. Me going to the sovereign wealth thing today, it could matter a lot, you know, and it's owned by you. And, like, it's a really unique, precious thing that was put together, and not many countries ever did that. But I do think you guys and other countries along the sort of Nordics, it really matters on a global level. And when we last saw each other, which was at the World Health Assembly, you know, often look to your country and others. So thank you. But and of course, if you love food and if you like pushing the food revolution forward, we always are grateful of your support. So thank you for having me. It's been a great day. So cheers.
And a few thank yous.
Huh?
A few thank yous.
Oh, yes, go for it.
Sorry, before Jamie's appreciating you, but we need to appreciate a few people that made Jamie possible today. So first of all, of course, Nikolai Tangen, thank you very much, and the rest of the team at the Business for Peace Foundation that have worked so hard to make today and these few days possible and to bring you here to Norway so that we can hear you.
Thank you.
Of course, the University of Oslo for housing us in such a beautiful location that is fit for such rich discussions. Everyone in the audience who came along, thank you very much for your questions and for being here. And of course, for those who joined live online from around the world. And last but not least, one more big thank you for Jamie Oliver.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, buddy. It's fun.